Okay. Hello, and welcome to our podcast on grief and communities of caring during this pandemic. We have a team of 4 incredible people here together, and I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with myself. I am Janny Chang, and I'm an adjunct at University of Southern California in anthropology, and I work at as a development of alumni and development director at Claiborne School. It's a kindergarten to 8th grade private school. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And then Aminata.
Hello, my name is Aminata Cham, and I work in IT project management for a company that focuses in augmented reality and IoT in the tech space.
Great, Rosalyn.
Hi, my name is Rosalyn Hansrisuk. I am an executive operations manager for a technology company based in New York and Puerto Rico, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Chang, and I am a school teacher. I teach high school at a DC area private school, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you all. So I wanted to kind of just start and talk about this sense of collective grief in the air. David Kessler, who's an expert on grief, he sort of continues Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work on, grieving and death, says that because of this pandemic and so many changes going on, it's really feeling a little chaotic, and that we're not used to this kind of collective grief kind of hanging in the air. He also says that we're feeling a sort of anticipatory grief. He says anticipatory grief has to do with this feeling that we're uncertain about what the future holds. Like, for example, how long will this pandemic last? What is our future going to look like a year from now? And, will everything be okay, after the elections, for instance? So even though there's this collective grief hanging over us, of course, we're experiencing it in very different ways. Based on our positionalities and our own positions within our set of social relations. Also just in our everyday lives, right? And I know that we've discussed this sort of off the podcast, what that means to us. What is this grieving, and how do we cope with it? And how do we create these communities of caring in our own personal and professional lives? And so this is what I think we can spend this podcast talking about. And I wanted to see if anyone has anything to say about that first and foremost.
This is Allison. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm speaking for myself and not on behalf of my school. I would say when the grief is communal, I feel almost like it's like the tragedy of the commons, where it belongs to everyone. And then I sometimes feel like it's normal, and therefore I shouldn't complain about certain things, especially knowing that I'm working from home right now. And so even though I feel grief that I'm not with my kids and I'm at a new school, and I feel grief that other things are happening, then I sometimes feel like, well, everybody's going through it, so it's difficult for me to talk to somebody else and burden them with my grief.
And I'll just add, this is Aminata speaking, that I feel like, at least in my lifetime, this is the one time that the whole world is experiencing grief together at the same time. And typically, you see, sad things, death, destruction, all kinds of tragedies happen, before COVID, and it would be like some country or some location, some situation, earthquake, this and that. And you can, kind of reach out, try to help. All you can do, you'll try to empathize and sympathize with people, but it's always like you're removed from it if it's not actually happening to you. And so I found that this is just everybody, we're all so connected that it impacts everybody. So to Allison's point, you almost feel like, well, I can't complain, because then all of us can complain. Like, we're all going through it together.
And this is Rosalyn. So dovetailing on what Allison and Aminata have said, pretty much the same thing. This is something that we've only read about in history books in school, something that never happened within our lifetimes, and now this is happening. So there is that common foundation that all of us are going through, that's unspoken, that's implicit and understood, and that gives us how we cope with it will be a great topic of discussion for today. I know from my end, I've been largely out of academia for a while, but from the business end of things, we are trying to think of ways to create a sense of community among our employees on a corporate level, and to make sure everyone's voices are heard and understood, and everyone has a place sort of solace, whether they are regardless of their living situation. If they're single, alone, perhaps they have family, they need to get away from them. We're trying to provide some sort of community within our virtual workspace, which is quite common these days.
Great, thank you all. Yeah, this is Janny also speaking on my experience with grief. I referred back to this this article, and I had sent it to the group, but on well, just back in the day when I was also more immersed in academia, but reading Renato Rosaldo's his ethnography on headhunters, and he and his wife had done a lot of field work with the Ilonggo, this ethnic group in the Philippines near, I guess, Manila, but they were known to headhunt, like behead people when they were grieving, like really serious grieving. But in that grief, he discovered that there's rage, and so the headhunting actually helped with the rage, because like you behead someone, and then they have all these rituals tied to it, like saying prayers. So it's not just like some merciless killing or something, but it's almost like a gratitude of thanking that person for sacrificing your life, and whatever. Usually it's based on a raid that happened, but the point is, like, I was reading about it, and Renato actually went back and kind of rewrote certain things, because after his wife died, he lost his brother and he lost his wife, who was also an anthropologist, when they were in the field and she fell off a cliff. And then so he started to understand like what the Ilonggo had gone through, because before he was, with a lot of us, we think, oh, like that's a beheading. It's a very strange kind of thing to do. But now he kind of understood where that rage came from, because he himself understood what grief was made of. And so like I was thinking about myself, like I think I have a lot of rage. Like I was, even just when this pandemic, everything sort of happened, and even now I'm still working through it. It's a daily process. But it's just interesting to think about rage as tied to grief, and like where to channel that. And I think a lot of us, it's hard to find a way to channel rage, especially I feel like as women, a lot of us are taught like not to be angry, or how do you cope at this time like this? For me, in terms of personally, it's like I have 2 kids, and we've a lot has changed for them. We're working remotely from home, also watching the kids. We're worried about the elections and the future, our jobs, will we have jobs in a year? It's just, there's so much piling up every day. It's quite a bit of anxiety and stress, and rage. I think underlying that, I do have quite a bit of rage. So I think that's just kind of interesting to think about for me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Janny. Reminds me of just, I know we talk about this, but the need to just exercise compassion for oneself, and just, it's a lot, and we're all making it through. As a parent of a 6-year-old myself, I just came from soccer earlier. We just started a small soccer group with other parents. And, we were talking about just how much more we're doing, how much more effort we're able to put in to be creatively setting up, play dates, or safely social distance with masks and all of that, where before COVID, we did not put in even a quarter of this, the time that we're spending to coordinate and work together and really be a supportive network of parents for these young children. So I think that's all like good things that are kind of hard to see. So we often will beat ourselves. Like I'm like rushing out of here, like we gotta go, pre-COVID. But now I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. My son's birthday's coming up, and we might do a Zoom call. It's okay. Yeah, just wanted to share that.
Hi, this is Allison. I was trying to find I was reading The Atlantic the other day, and they had a really good article about what our office is and like what is the nature of work now that many of us, but not all, are working from home. And I can't think of the exact term, but it was something like spatial or organizational inefficiency. And I'm bringing that up because when Rosalyn was talking about how her office is trying to build community remotely, and my school has hundreds of people, and so for example, I've literally never met any of my students in person. And so with the organizational inefficiency, that was like, well, in order to go about my day, I have to go and bump into people in the hallway and the staircase, and then you build rapport even through 60 seconds in front of a microwave. And so as I have started at a school that I really love, that I have been trying to get into for many years, I was celebrating that in the summer. But then as the year continues, I worry like, okay, do my students think I'm being unfair? And then I'm only seeing them twice a week. So, and then I'm like grading them. And so a lot of my grief comes into like this inefficiency no longer existing. And then my school is working on more mixer events for the faculty, but like I just feel like the teachers are here to take care of kids and to be in a community with your coworkers, and that doesn't exist right now. And so for me, all of that interaction is now missing, and it can even feel inappropriate to like call a coworker because you want to respect their boundaries. And so it's very difficult for me right now to figure out how to interact with people and to gauge any kind of relationship building that I'm making. And that's a really big, I wouldn't say I have a lot of rage, but I just have a lot of, I guess, confusion and worry because you don't see anybody in real life.
And so Janny just asking a question. Allison, do you think that like having a Slack channel or certain types of technology would help with that? Like more increased communications that would make it more casual and like just open? Would that be something helpful?
Well, it's interesting. I did use Slack at my previous school, and I think that was helpful. I'm not sure how it works in larger organizations because my last school was really, really small. And so I have been able to build some amount of just texting people who are friendly and open to doing that. But there aren't any kind of spontaneous interactions anymore. And then we know that like Slack is not private because the administrator can read the Slack. And so I know that, for example, at the next meeting, we're going to have some mixers built into the meeting. I think for me, it's like, I'm so exhausted. Like after I get out of this meeting, I have to go and publish every single thing for the entire week online. And that involves a lot of kind of mechanized clicking and copy pasting. And I'm very behind, I feel, in my grading, even though other people might say I'm not behind. So I feel like so much of our time at this school and at many schools is taken up by fulfilling our responsibilities online. And so we feel really overwhelmed of like, if we had a 7 p.m. hangout for food or something on Zoom, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even attend because it just seems like another meeting. So I guess, definitely Slack can help with that. I'm kind of curious how Rosalyn's company has come up with events and whether you're experiencing similar kind of fatigue with just getting through your day.
Yes, this is Rosalyn. And so to answer Allison's question, like, yes, absolutely. We are now converting all of our normal physical interaction all to online. And I can only speak for the Puerto Rico office. I haven't had any long-term experience with any of our other offices, which may have different cultural nuances. But for the Puerto Rico office, they really value in-person interaction. You know, bumping into the kitchen while you're heating up your lunch, or while you're getting a drink or snack in the kitchen. There's always interaction all the time. So having that absent is really hard, as you said, of how do we foster these sort of like impromptu hangouts or chats and things like that. Speaking again for the Puerto Rico office, they're big on WhatsApp. They're not big on Slack for social hangouts. So then usually they already have like little WhatsApp groups. Right, WhatsApp groups, like little text groups per department, and then that's a very casual way to really meet someone and speak very informally and things like that. And in the last few months, when we have had to create some sort of like social events, networking, or just happy hour, it's been really clunky at first. But I think we're getting a rhythm to it. Before we used to have some random, like really light party game events, such as like bingo, for example. And so it's an effort to like kind of get everyone in the same room, so to speak, to really vent, to say hi, to casually mix. But then when you're in a room, in a Zoom chat, Zoom room of like 20 other people, it's hard to get that one-on-one conversation to say hi. And so we're trying to work that out. And then also getting the right gaming, getting the right activities down we're still refining it, but we're on our way. We do have the vision there, but we just need to accomplish that. So it's hard to do that when you have a week full of meetings and then you're zoomed out at the end of the week. And so you definitely don't want to do a happy hour at 5 p.m. because you've been in front of your computer for like 8 hours already, especially if you're working with employees from different offices, from India, from other time zones where you're already in front of your computer since 7 or 8 a.m. You certainly do not want to be in front of your computer come 5 or 6 p.m. at night. So we're working on it. We're definitely refining it. I think we're definitely on our way. We have some great ideas in a way that won't prolong the Zoom fatigue that I'm sure everyone is experiencing. And then also piggybacking on top of that to what Janny said before, how we cope and everything. For me personally, we're sort of coping in two different ways. Then personally, in my personal life, what's happening politically is very all sorts of like of a mix of rage, of sadness, of all sorts of things. And how I've channeled it with my partner Gregory is like we were doing letter writing and postcard writing to really feel as if we're doing something that's sort of worth it to have an effect on the upcoming political elections, with especially during quarantine and during COVID, where we basically just work and eat and sleep. We needed more activities as an outlet. And so letter writing to other people has been comforting to us. And then also with the recent passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and also for the first presidential debate, those are events where we are just either incredibly sad and we need some outlet to channel our energies, or we're incredibly angry and we need some outlet to channel our energies. We found that letter writing does help with our coping of all of this.
Wonderful. That's really great, Rosalyn. Thank you. And so I wanted to, this is Janny speaking, sorry. And I also wanted to just ask Aminata about this sort of, because I know you have a lot of meetings at your work. I, for one, am feeling zoomed out. Like I feel the fatigue. Do you, Aminata, are you guys doing social functions online? Do you find them to be effective? Are they communities of caring, or, do you like them? Do you attend them?
Yes, I would say at work, once COVID hit, we were really good with the social events, the Zoom type of social events. So we used to have every Thursday at work in person, we would have a big social at the top floor, and it's like food and music and, probably kind of like 3 p.m. to 5-ish. And so those were a time for people to just take a breather and mingle and, socialize and network even. And we felt like, whoa, we can't have that gone. So from, executive leadership to everybody, we'll set up a Zoom and it'll be like hundreds of people globally joining from like Spain and Asia and everywhere. And so that was nice. But then before you know it, we were with too many meetings to even be able to have the Zoom. So those just kind of faded away. But one thing I feel like we've been doing in smaller teams and smaller groups is just finding creative ways to actually hold kind of like these non-meeting Zooms. An example is one of our teammates had a baby and or was about to have a baby to go on paternity leave. And so we had this secret baby shower planned, and we really all just went out of our way to find games and be really creative, but without him knowing. And so that day for the team meeting, he's expecting it's a regular meeting, but we each brought a childhood picture or a baby picture that we can find, or some funny picture, and we each talked about it, and it just was the perfect icebreaker to start, kind of like take our minds off of work. So we do things like that. And I would say, for me personally, that's like at work, but personally, it sounds counterintuitive to say that I've been Zooming more. But I've found, because my family is so spread out in, all regions of the world, and I'm here just with my son, I basically got a Zoom account and gave it to every cousin, every aunt, every brother, every sister. And so quite often I get an alert when somebody joins or some people join, and we just jump on and we talk about nothing and we laugh, and we just, hours go by before we notice. And we do that on a daily basis. So even if I'm tired, I'm looking forward to, a nephew or a niece in Pennsylvania or in Africa or elsewhere. And so it's been very enriching, especially for my 6-year-old, who is building relationships with uncles and great uncles who are in Scotland or France or elsewhere, which we didn't go out of our way this much before COVID. Like maybe once a month or twice a month, he'll talk to a distant relative, So in that sense, I feel like, yeah, we're zoomed out at work, but we're also getting these really, really, the connections that are priceless using Zoom.
This is Allison. Rosalyn and Aminata, you guys both reminded me of things I forgot to mention, which I'll just say quickly. So first of all, my school has this really great tradition where they give you what's called a first friend. And so if you're a new hire, then you get contacted by your first friend, and you can ask them like whatever question you want. And so then you can always feel welcome to call that person. And then the other thing is, my school has recently started faculty affinity groups. And so I went to the people of color meeting, and they've specifically set that up to be a really safe space where you don't have to worry about, your boss retaliating or something like that, as much as they can. And then with your comment, Aminata, I will say this has made me reach out to people I don't usually talk to as much. So on the non-work side, I used to be in a group called Community Roots at UMD College Park, and it's like a political cultural group. And they just started a WhatsApp conversation group, and then we are going to have a Zoom happy hour next week. And these are people who I dearly love, but I almost never used to talk to. And now I find myself calling people on the phone. And so I find that kind of old-fashioned communication is letting me get to know people better who I didn't usually hang out with. So that is a positive aspect of me being stressed and then connecting with other people who are in a similar situation.
This is Janny here. I also want to just add to that what Allison's saying is that for me, I think, so two kind of coping mechanisms that have really helped me is first what Rosalyn was saying is like, I know Rosalyn has done a lot of the letter writing. We just started doing the letter writing for the elections, and we were doing postcards, and it does feel good to be part of this democracy and to kind of channel energy in that way. And just also just to do what we can. At least we know once November 3rd comes, like, okay, we did all that we could, no matter the results. But that has really helped me sort of channel some of this rage and stress and anxiety society. And then the second thing is this, we have this Saturday group for our listeners, is that it started off as a meetup, an actual in-person meetup group where just a bunch of us get together and like once every 2 weeks to talk about certain articles or talk about politics. It was meant to be an offshoot of kind of like academic ideas, but to open to anyone. Anyone can come and talk about these ideas, and not just if you're in the academy per se. But then now with the virtual, we've kind of continued it online, and it's actually been amazing because before all this happened, I couldn't even attend some of the in-person meetings because of kids and just got so busy. But now it's like I can actually go every Saturday morning, and Aminata goes there, every weekend. Rosalyn and Allison have participated in it. But it's just become, for me, it's become a place of I think really caring and thoughtful ideas, and just like also a place to vent. People can come and we're just, I feel like this is a place where, I have friends, friends that really like want to talk about what's going on in the world, or even what's affecting them personally in their job or with grief or different aspects. So I feel like those two things for me have been also ways that have helped me cope with this grief during this period.
Yeah. This is Aminata. I just wanted to add to Janny, as you're speaking, it reminded me of another thing that I think it's been a really good and very positive thing that I've started doing because of COVID that I never did, which is reaching out to elderly neighbors around me and offering to go grocery shopping for them, or going with my son to just do simple things that, doesn't take too much of my time, but makes a difference. Whereas I've lived in this neighborhood for a very long time and I never really did that. I would just wave, say hi, and oh, your kid's getting really big. Yeah, he's getting big. He's in this grade. That's it. But because of this pandemic, that we're all just the commonality, like we're all going through it, and it's no one needs to tell me how difficult it is for them, for me to know that I should be extending support. So I think that's definitely been a very good, helpful coping mechanism as well.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
This is Rosalyn, and yes, actually, dovetailing on what Aminata said, I think there are some certain practices that coming out of COVID, then we will keep, such as just like doing more Zoom calls instead of being unable to meet in person. We could easily just hop on a video call instead, and see our friends, neighbors, or other people who we normally don't reach out and reach out and touch base with, as Allison mentioned. And then also another topic on that is where we're really becoming creative in how we cope with this. And one thing that I'm doing on personal level outside of work is trying to think of like what to do for like the holidays, where I think I've realized and unfortunately come to the conclusion that I won't be able to fly to California where my family is for the holidays. And that really made me incredibly sad. Since Christmas, we're not particularly religious people at all, but holidays always meant family, just a very baseline, just family. And unfortunately, it came to the realization that I was probably unable to travel due to the whole unknown of traveling airplanes and airports. And so it's really forced me to become creative in how to celebrate the holidays, either reaching out to my family more and just thinking of what to send them as gifts, either really thoughtful, personalized gifts or just food. Like so far, I've sent 2 or 3 friends packages of food, and they found it so nurturing and so comforting, and that's exactly what we need right now. And so I think this is coming out of just trying to think out of the box and really be present in other people's lives without physically being present.
Can I say something about holidays, Janny?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. This is Allison. So I listened to, I don't even know what it was. I was listening to public radio the other day. And this is probably like 2 years ago. And this woman was talking about events and parties. And she was asking like, listen, you're asking me about this party and I'm going to give you advice, but like, what do you think is the function of this party? And I'm bringing this up because, well, first of all, I got married a couple of years ago, and I had to think about that. Like, what is important for me for my wedding? Instead of doing a traditional wedding, what do I want my guests to get out of the wedding? What do I want to get out of the wedding? So I was recently thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas, because when it became clear that the pandemic would not be over in the US in the next few months, right? Which we had all, I think most of us had been thinking like maybe this is just like the in-between period, but now it's like the long haul. So I was like, okay, like it's probably more important for our mental health and community for us to no longer wear masks all the time around my parents who live nearby, because we are not high risk people. And it was putting a wedge between my ability to spend time with my parents. And then with my father-in-law, he is a little bit immunocompromised. And so I was thinking about Christmas, and I was like, well, you know what? It would make me really sad to not have the food on the table, but then I also want to be spaced out. So then I realized, well, what is the function of having the food on the table? It's like we're all celebrating this thing and we're all together. So then I asked my husband, I was like, what if we make a really beautiful centerpiece with plants or candles and put that in the center of this long table, and then we can put the food on the side, so that can increase the social distancing, but it still fulfills the function of the table, and it fulfills like the function of what's on the table. And it helped me to think back to like, why are we having this event? What do we want to get out of this event? How can we still have those functions happening, even though we had to figure out how to do it a different way? So I just wanted to bring that up because I know the holidays are coming up. So we're going to leave candy outside for Halloween and we're going to decorate, which makes us feel good, but then we're not going to open the door for anybody. So these are the things that I'm trying to plan for the future.
Janny speaking, and you are planning really ahead. That's great. And same for us for Halloween. We are going to give out candy, but I've already bagged them up and I'm going to put them on our lawn so people can grab them, and they're going to be spaced out apart. But I haven't thought about Christmas yet. And that you're giving me ideas, Allison. We're probably not going to have an in-person Christmas, but I do like the idea of a centerpiece and being spaced out and finding creative ways to spend time with your family.
Yeah, Janny, I'm like a weird, freaky planner. So I try to buy all the Christmas things by November, so I just stop worrying about it.
It's really ahead. And Rosalyn, I love the idea of sending food, but I want to know what kind of food. Are you sending like dry package, or is it like local places that are delivering to them? Because I love that idea.
So this is Rosalyn. Short answer is it's like frozen food that it's drop shipped, I think 1 or 2 day overnight delivery to the person, and then they get it in a refrigerator controlled like box, and then they have to put it in the freezer immediately. But these are things they can take out, bake, and then enjoy. And
Wow.
so it's a really awesome, it's making me think outside the box and think of what other great food mail order services are available to take advantage of, especially local places who are women run or Black owned businesses, to really take advantage of and support. One step further is ordering, like if I know my parents' like favorite meal, I can order it locally from from the local restaurant and have it delivered to them. So just like trying to think of new ways to bring that comfort into their life.
I have to say, I really don't know what I'd be doing without the internet this year.
I agree. This is Aminata. I just wanted to add 2 points here that as you guys are talking, it's reminding me. So one is that it's incredible how much I've realized that I can live without. Prior to COVID, like a lot of things was just like, no, like I got to do this, or I need this, or I need that right now. And it's allowed me to go through this whole process of elimination to realize just what are the basic things that I actually need in this world, in this life, like to survive and thrive and be happy. And so I think that part, I'm really grateful, as much as it's been quite heavy and sad and tragic in so many ways, having this grief that we've been going through. But yeah, that's allowed me to have a very clear perspective in many ways of what's important to me and what my priorities are. And another thing I wanted to add is just to piggyback off of Janny, when you were saying the Zoom calls we have and the community we've built of supporting each other through this. There's a call I attend which is actually called Good News Jam on purpose, that I've been attending as well through this COVID crisis. And it's been such a nice, breath of fresh air, because it's purposely designed so that we all have so much that we've gone through. But this time span that we're in the Zoom, we're gonna just share stories, no matter how small, of good news that we have. And so it made us have to actually think through, what are the moments out throughout the day that I celebrate, or the week, what are the things that I actually may not pay attention to but was a good win. And so we would share those and acknowledge each other, and just like forget the sadness for a second. And that was really helpful as well.
Yeah, Janny speaking. That's such a that's something that I've been thinking about too, is like because I think I've been stuck at home more, working from home. It's like it made me sort of reflect on myself and like my own. I'm part of now this like coaching program. I think I've told you, Aminata, about it, but it's like this feminist coaching program. But it's a lot of it is like reflecting on our own ideas and the stories we tell ourselves. And I didn't realize this, that I like, in my own mind, like I sometimes have a lot of like negative self-talk, and anyway, but it just reminds me of that, because I think sometimes like when you're forced to kind of work remote, or you're quarantining or isolating, it's like you have to turn inward, in a way. It's like you're forced to like, or think of things, or like for me, it's been reflecting on these more positive aspects, like, oh, some of the things that are happening positively, or also my own self-talk. But yes, so that's a really good point. So I know that we've all talked about, our experience of grief and collective, feelings of collective grief, also individualized, like we're all going through different things, and then also, of course, our communities of caring, whether we're creating that at workplaces, or in our own lives, like doing more virtual meetups on Zoom, or getting together with people. I've even done like a virtual tea with some of my coworkers, which actually turned out surprisingly well. It didn't have the spontaneous interactions that Allison was talking about, but it's better than nothing right now. But is there anything else that you would like to add, any of you, about just like what you think, also just other people that you've seen might be going through, your thoughts. I think about the essential workers, or the different challenges that medical doctors and nurses and the cleaning crew, everyone, to me it feels like a turmoil, to me. But is there anything else that any of you want to add to this, or it could be a very hopeful and optimistic thought that you may have about what's to come?
This is Allison. I'll try to be brief. First of all, I want to say I did actually start going to, get therapy, just to, work through my emotions. And, one thing that my therapist said to me was, you need to schedule self-care like it is a work task, because I realized that I basically I almost stopped checking my personal email, because I just work all the time. And this weekend I forced myself to not work. I am going to have to fulfill a deadline by midnight tonight, but I just, like that's something that I'm trying now, is, realizing that no matter how hard I work, the work will never be done. And nobody is going to feel better if I work all weekend. And so I'm really, really trying to stop the negative self-talk, and stop being a workaholic, which I never was. I never was a workaholic before the pandemic. So I just wanted to kind of like say to anybody listening, like it has helped me to think about the self-care as the same thing. It's like you're doing it so that you can have a good brain, so that you can do your work. But when I think about essential workers and doctors, I mean, honestly, I really hope that there are support systems for them. I really hope that, I mean, my sister-in-law is a doctor, I just really hope that they are receiving the care they need. And then I have donated in ways that I hope that can provide PPE for other people, so I think it's part of the kind of American and global community that we're all looking at where we can give, when we can give, or, Aminata, with you helping the neighbor. So that's what I think about when I think about essential workers.
This is Aminata. So just to add to that quickly, I feel like, whether it's essential workers or, anyone whatsoever in this crisis that is going through a difficult time, in addition to us, like some of us are privileged, we can work from home, right? Some of us, still have jobs, and some of us aren't taking care of sick people and all of that. But it's just, there's so many layers to what we're all going through, that I feel when I think about, ways in which either I need to cope or others need to cope, I think a go-to has been just leading with empathy, like just practicing it and trying, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much I'm going through. I know it makes a big difference, whether it's somebody at the grocery store, whether it's my coworker, because there's just so much going on and you can't lose. Like, it's win-win if you practice empathy more, because I think it goes a long way, because our minds are just overloaded with way too much. It's like a juggling act in there, so yeah, I think that's been a very good thing for me, because sometimes, I'm just so into my own things, my own daily troubles, that I don't pay attention to that as much. But I really have been actively trying to empathize more, especially people with disability, people who maybe wearing a mask is uncomfortable to me. But can you imagine somebody who can't read lips, because all of us are wearing masks, right? Just the little things like that, and trying to think outside of just me and my needs.
And this is Rosalyn, and I'll try to be brief. Going on what Allison said, I think having more, just greater self-compassion, and not being so hard on ourselves, because as Allison said, like, no one's going to be there. There's not going to be someone incrementally happier if we work all weekend and tire ourselves out and burn ourselves out. Just having more time for ourselves to take care of ourselves, to do better work. I think that's one of the things that has come out of this since during the time of COVID, and having the division of work and home blurred now, and it's all one place. That has been, people have had to definitely create a schedule and have structure in order to carve out that personal time they have for themselves. So that's one big thing that that I'm definitely still learning out of COVID. And then another thing, going on the whole essential workers, I'm hopeful that now, because of the upcoming elections, there's just a huge greater awareness and engagement and involvement in politics and policy on the personal level, on the local level, where people are starting to wake up to realize the things they've taken for granted, going to a restaurant and eating, like just being really thankful for the people who work in restaurants, people who, healthcare workers, people who had to like deal with this at the forefront while all of us had to stay home, and people who during all of this, even during lockdown, had to still go out and maintain their duties and responsibilities to like keep a city running. And there's that funny meme. I'm sorry, this is Rosalyn. There's that funny meme online where I think 3 or 4 weeks into the pandemic, people realize, especially parents who had to take care of their children, become teachers, and still work. They said, like the lesson they learned is that teachers need to be paid $1 million per year out of all this. So I think what I'm hopeful for is just greater awareness and of teachers, essential workers, and greater engagement in local politics to really make sure that to not pass by a local primary or election for city council or anyone, to really be engaged and involved and understand the local issues in politics, since clearly they have like a massive effect.
Absolutely. And this is Janny here. But yes, this has galvanized, I think, people to be really involved in all different kinds of, like you said, elections, local level, city level, state level, national level. It's so important. And just to reiterate what everyone, Aminata and Allison, Rosalyn have all said, is that compassion, empathy is key. And it's towards ourselves and towards others and people that we may not often think about. We call them marginalized, but I mean, just, it's really everyone, that people that we all have to unite together and understand each other better, and in order to get through this together. And of course, policies really, really matter. And so get engaged in politics. Want to thank the listeners for joining us. And we will have, people's email addresses. So if anyone wants to reach out to us, please feel free. Thank you for spending the time with us, and talk, listening, and hearing our stories. And we hope you stay safe and healthy, and blessings to you all. I'm going to stop recording.